No matter how many videos you watch, how many research you do, there are a few things that nobody is talking about that I wish I knew when I was first starting content creation. Whether or not you want to create videos on YouTube, TikTok, or some other social media platform, there are some core things that you need to know in order to be prepared for what is going to happen once you go on there. Hello, I'm J, and I have been here on YouTube for almost 3 years, and I'm just shy of 100,000 subscribers, and I've learned quite a few things that I would love to share with you so you can be mentally prepared and also get excited about creating content. And as a quick disclaimer, I just want to say some of these are highs, some of these are lows, and I just want you to know if you feel called to create content, you cannot let anything stop you, including yourself. I could not have imagined the benefits, the amazingness that has come from creating videos and putting myself out there. So if that is at all a part of your desire, I deeply wish that. I don't know about you, but I'm a little over just me talking in my room for today. So let's go on a little journey. I'm gonna take you to my old neighborhood where I spend the majority of my 20s, and we're gonna talk about some of these key insights that can help you show up better in video and prepare yourself for the journey ahead.
Hey.
Hi, Mom. Okay, the first major lesson about making videos, making content in the social media sort of realm. Most people think, and I even was guilty of this in the beginning, is that it's about money. That when you get to a certain place, like for example, YouTube ads or the TikTok creator program, that you will be making consistent money and it will be an end in and of itself. Well, first of all, it takes a long time to get monetized no matter what you're doing. But what I found is that money is almost never going to be reliable, even if you start making a lot. So it took a long time for me to get monetized, almost 2.5 years. And then once I did, I found out that I had a pretty high CPM rate, which means the cost that the advertisers are paying to place ads on my video is quite high per a lot of other channels. However, a couple months ago, that cost got cut in half. So with even the same amount of views as the month before, I was making half the money instantly. The other thing is that views fluctuate so much because of the algorithm. So you never want to think about creating this content as being your primary source for generating income. What you do want to think about it as is free marketing. This is how we're going to attract people to our offer, to whatever it is. So whether it's affiliate links, whether it's course creation, whether it's a product or a service, this is the money that you're not spending on Facebook ads or billboards to try to get people's attention. That's what creating this content is for. The faster you can change that thinking, the more freedom you'll have. Then of course, when you do make money, it'll be icing on the cake and it'll be wonderful, but you won't be set up for failure. Because to be honest, I had a couple good months and I felt pretty good about that consistency. And then in the next month, my ads just got wiped and I was a little bit shell-shocked. And that's what finally instigated me, which is a good thing, into making my course, because I was just like, wow, we need to not rely on YouTube in this way. Okay, another lesson that I've learned in making videos is that it's only really ever about consistency, and that is over quality. Most people will tell you that it's really important, the type of videos you make, that you put so much energy and effort into it. And while I totally understand that, what I've known to be true is as soon as you make a video, people are over it. And it's all about being able to keep up that momentum, keep people watching, engaged, and interested. Oddly enough, the videos that you tend to put the most energy into don't do so well. And then a lot of times the ones that you just like throw up get, I don't know, like 1 million views. So really training yourself to be able to be consistent, put it out no matter what, like beat your perfectionism, the more success you will have. Can I do an iced green tea in one of these cool cups? Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Here's money for you.
You got it.
This used to be my old stomping ground, but Smith is here now, which is tea that I love. And the neighborhood has changed quite a bit in like the 10 years that I've lived here. Which brings me to my point about newness. I think we all have this idea that you're going to reach the top of the mountain, like you're going to arrive somewhere and then you'll be able to rest. And the thing about creating content is that you constantly have to be in this conversation with newness, being willing to pivot, being willing to change, being willing to try new things. Because as soon as you get comfortable, as soon as you start to rest, you become out of alignment with what your audience is interested in. And actually, Tiffany Ferguson, who's an amazing YouTuber, just did a video all about losing your relevance on YouTube and what happens to creators when that happens. So changing your perspective from one like, I'm gonna hustle until I get somewhere, to thinking about maintaining a pace that you can sustain, and just know as long as you're creating this content, you're gonna have to keep adapting and evolving, which to me is actually like really exciting. Okay, so another thing that they definitely don't tell you, the powers that be, whoever they are, is that when you are watching videos of yourself, which you have to do, whether or not you're editing or just reviewing your content to see what you've done before, is you end up getting really familiar with flaws. Like your flaws you had no idea existed. For example, I realized that I have one eyebrow that's permanently set higher than the other, or that every few words I randomly wonk my mouth out to the side. And these are things I had no idea about, but I started to realize once I started creating content, and literally my job became staring at myself in the face. The thing that's interesting about that though is if you can, and it took me a while to be able to do this, get outside of myself and just realize that everybody has their weird idiosyncratic things and the videos are still doing their job, people are connecting regardless of it. It kind of gives you a little bit more permission to own it. So if you're somebody who tends to be really self-conscious and really hard on yourself, just know as you go through things, there's kind of this dark night of the soul that you're gonna have to arrive through. But ultimately, I think it ends up making you, or at least me, more confident in knowing that, yeah, I have these weird things that probably nobody else will notice that I'm acutely aware of, but it doesn't stop anybody from resonating with my content. Another thing that you have to get really comfortable with is just understanding that you are always going to be disappointing people in some capacity. Now that ratio is not gonna be crazy. You will definitely, if you're doing a good job, if you're being yourself, if you're showing up in a wonderful way, that's authentic to you, you will be doing more good than bad. You will be lifting people's spirits much more than you're disappointing. But the reality is you are always going to disappoint. And the more that you are specific about who you are, what your videos are about, the more statistically you're gonna have people who are disappointed with your content. The way this has shown up for me recently is I had a video from 2 years ago pop. And so all of these people are asking me for content related to this specific video. And as much as I would love to make it, I really feel like I'm in a different place now. My channel is in a different direction. And even though they aren't saying, hey, I'm disappointed in you, the very fact that they're asking for that content and I am not delivering it leaves me with this feeling of yeah, they're gonna be disappointed. And it's just one of these things you have to learn to be able to just live with that outcome, that all you can do is try your best and just know that's par for the course. Another part that I feel like people tell you, but you don't really realize, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, it is always 100% embarrassing to be filming outside. I definitely haven't reached the point where I feel used to it, and I feel like no matter what you're doing, there are people who are always going to be looking and curious. More random people looking at me. The one thing to know about that though is I've never had anybody be negative. They're always really positive and curious and will ask you questions. Or sometimes when you walk into places with a camera, they'll say no, and I don't know why, because it's free publicity. I don't know why somebody would turn that down. But it does bring up these feelings of high school nerd, not fitting in, people are judging me. As far as I know, that feeling never goes away. So you just have to at some point just decide you're gonna do it and show up and know that the content that you're creating is helpful to people. Okay, this one is going to be a little bit polarizing. I can already feel you rolling your eyes, but I have to be honest with you. As you're on this journey, you will tell yourself that the more subscribers you have, the more followers you have, you will feel different. You will feel loved. You will feel like you have a big community. And yes, that's true to a certain extent, but really at the end of the day, you are alone by yourself. Most of the time, because now so much of my day, so much of my energy is me talking to a camera, which I love, I don't spend as much time interacting with people as I did when I was a photographer. I don't think we, in terms of a mental health perspective, really account for that. And in fact, I went for a walk with one of my good friends that we've known each other since I was 3. And she was like, oh my gosh, you blew up on TikTok. You have so many subscribers on YouTube. When I had said, yeah, and it's great. And I'm so excited. I also feel lonelier than I've ever felt. And I just saw the surprise on her face, because we have this idea, this mythology that magically you are going to feel connected because you have a lot of people looking at you, looking to you, engaging with you, which is so wonderful. And I don't want to minimize the amazing energy that comes from it, because I'm so deeply grateful. And also, none of that in terms of my body feels real. It doesn't feel the same as going for a walk with someone, going to coffee for someone. And I think this is why you see so many YouTubers and content creators meet up and do meetups with their audience, because the body can't make the abstract feel real. And I've really had to think about ways that I can create some of that contact again. It is kind of like that a little bit on live, when you do lives and you get to have that immediate feedback, which is why I try to do video premieres when I can. If I'm being honest, my mental health has suffered a bit since I went to being so in the camera, so by myself, so creating content. And no matter how many Zooms or comments or followers that are generated, it just doesn't feel like connection in the same way that my body needs. So you don't need to feel bad for me or get worried about that as you grow. It's just making sure that you understand you have to put a lot of energy into the type of connection that's going to mean something to you and your body, as well as growing this thing. Because that is, I think, the core of why so many people burn out on YouTube, because it can really with your brain, because everybody's telling you should be so grateful, you are so connected, you have so many eyes on you, which is 100% true. And yet there's a part of my body that doesn't register it. And so I feel lonely and alone a lot. Okay, let's head back to my place, because I have the big one that is game changing, that just like, I so wish I had known this from the jump. That's my old apartment. Hi, old apartment. I love you. Oh my gosh, so much of my 20s was spent in that apartment, and I just am sending so much love and gratitude to that younger version of myself that felt so lost, so wayward, but also so excited about the potential of things. And when I compare where I am now to who she was and where she was, I'm really proud of myself, and I forget that, that I've come as far as I have. Okay, let's get it all set up. This one I saved for last because it is by far the most important. There's a flip that happens in terms of your subscriber to views ratio that you have to prepare yourself for. In the beginning of your journey, you are going to have very few followers and subscribers, of course. So when you are getting views on your videos, they are going to be more than your total follower or subscriber count. Particularly when you have a video that's kind of taking off, that's doing a little bit better, that ratio is going to be more views to subscribers. At some point, this flips. And if you aren't mentally prepared, it can super throw you for a loop, because the people who subscribe to your channel only see your content based on whether or not the algorithm thinks that content is a fit for them. This is why it's so important when you subscribe to my channel that you ding the bell for all notifications, so that you are not letting YouTube dictate when you get to see my stuff. That means when you post a video, only a fraction of the people who are following you are actually going to be able to connect to that content, which means the more your channel, the more your profile grows, your views will be fewer than your total subscriber or follower count. You can affirm this for yourself by looking at any major channels. If they have 2 million, if they have 500,000, if they have 100,000 subscribers, what will happen is they will have a couple of videos that have a lot, but generally speaking, most of the videos will have, and it's like a fraction. It's usually 10%, maybe 20%. Of course, it looks like a lot if you have somebody who has 5 million subscribers and they're on average still getting 200, 300,000 views per video. But when you look at that ratio, it's way off from their total subscriber count. Once this flip happens, it can make you feel like you're failing. So here you have a decent amount of followers and subscribers, but you don't have a lot of people on average seeing your content. It does not mean you're failing. It just means you've reached the level of the flip. This is why it's so important to not chase subscribers. It's really important to make sure that you are serving your audience and creating content that they can connect with, because this ratio is always going to happen. But if you are able to create content that really serves your audience, that they can dig into, the better and more consistent your ratio will be. This is something I'm really trying to work on, because I got a lot of subscribers in short bursts. On YouTube, this video, how to look good in Zoom, popped. I got a lot of followers from that. On TikTok, this video right here popped, and I got a lot of subscribers from that. But these aren't necessarily people who are 100% engaged with what I do and invested in the content that I'm making. If you look through my videos, you can see normally I'm getting somewhere between 1,000 to 3,000 views on my videos. Now, this can feel like a failure, but what I've decided it means is these are the true people who are going to watch my videos, who are really connected, that I am here to serve. Therefore, you can look at the big number, but instead I'm saying out of all the stuff I've created, I have about let's say 3,000 people who are really in it with me. So when I'm thinking about success metrics and whether or not I'm a failure or any of those things that inevitably come up, I'm not going to think about the big number. I'm going to think about the smaller one. All of that is to say your follower count, your subscriber account isn't the end all be all and should definitely not be your focus. If you like this video and it resonated, let me know in the comments. And of course, if you aren't subscribed, do that now. Since you made it to this part of the video, I'm going to suggest you check out this video on imposter syndrome because so many of us deal with it, and I have some key ingredients on how you can show up and kick it to the curb.